Okay, good day everyone. So last time we discussed about the communication and communication process. So today we will discuss about the communication model. So let me share my screen. So communication models. So what are the communication models? So we have three communication models. So linear communication model, the transactional model, and interactive model. So under the linear communication model, we have Laswell's model, Aristotle's model, Berlo's SMCR model. Transactional model, we have Shannon and Weaver model. Interactive model, we have Sharam's model and Dan's helical model. So let's define first what is a linear communication model. So when we say linear communication model, it is a communication considered as a one-way process, meaning the message signal is encoded and transmitted through the channel in the presence of noise. So the sender in this communication model or in this linear model of communication, the sender is the more prominent in the linear model of communication. So it also applied in mass communication. So for example, the television, the radio, propaganda. So we can use linear model of communication. So as you can see, this is the model of linear communication. We have the sender, the message, the channel, and the receiver. So again, so when we say linear model of communication, we have a one-way communication. So we can use that in a mass communication. It has a sender, sends message, and the receiver only receive the message, or receivers only receive. So in this model of communication, there is no feedback and concept of noise. So what is the pros and cons, or what is the disadvantage and advantages of this communication? So in this linear communication, this is good at the audience persuasion and propaganda setting. So what I've said a while ago, we can use as our propaganda, or we can use this linear communication in advertising some products, or just like meeting the avance for the candidates for the election. Next one is the intentional result. So the disadvantage of this linear model of communication, um, in this communication is not continuous, as no concept of feedback, because we have, what I've said a while ago, we only have the sender, the channel, the message, and the receiver. Meaning, we we do not have a feedback. So next one is no way to know if the communication was effective. So in this linear model of communication, we don't know if the communication was effective or not, because we do not have the concept of feedback, or we do not need to have a feedback. Next, linear model of communication. So we have the sender, the message, and the receiver. So we have different types of communication models based on the linear model of communication. So what are those? So the first one is the Aristotle model of communication. So we all know that Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and writer born in Stagira, northern Greece. So he was also the teacher of Alexander the Great, and he studied the physics, logics, mathematics, etc. So this is the example, or this is the Aristotle model of communication. So as you can see, um, Aristotle model of communication was the first model of communication proposed before the 300 before Common Era, or we can say that Aristotle model of communication was the oldest model of communication. So most widely accepted among all the communication models. So this is how Aristotle models of communication goes. We have the speaker, the speech, the occasions, audience, and effect. So these are the five um, primary elements of Aristotle model. So we have the speaker, the speech, occasion, audience, and effect. So in this communication model, we have the speaker-centered model. So as you can see, we have speech, occasions, audience, and effect. So it is highly used to develop public speaking skills and create a propaganda at that time. So it is less focused in intrapersonal or interpersonal communication. So if you still remember, I said a while ago that this model of communication, just like this Aristotle model of communication, we can use that in a propaganda setting or a public speaking or mass communication. So a speaker must have a very good nonverbal communication with an audience like eye contact, and hand gestures. So those are in this Aristotle model of communication, they usually use nonverbal communication, just like um, eye contact, hand gestures. Those are some nonverbal communication that in this model present. Okay. So as a good communicator, we have or we need to have these elements. So ethos, pathos, and logos. So when we say ethos, it is the credibility of the speaker, the characteristic. For example, how confident the speaker it is, or does um the speaker stand in front of the audience. Okay. So next is the pathos. So when we say pathos, um, it's about or it talks about the emotional band. If you say or if what you say matters to them and they can connect with it, so they will be more interested. So in this, you will attach their inner feeling of audience. Okay, for example, you have the sense of humor in talking in front of the ocean. So the last one is the logos. So sense of reason. So in this sense of reason or in this logos, you must present the facts to the audience for them to believe in you. So for example, you have your um, presentation or you have proposed project. So you need to present data that is I mean you need to present data or evidences that the audience believe you. Okay, so make sure that the facts that you're going to present is true. Okay, next. Criticism about Aristotle model of communication. So there are few criticism around this model. So some of there is no concept of feedback. So it is one way from a speaker to audience. So as you still remember, so I says that in this model of communication or Aristotle model of communication, there is no feedback. So we can identify if that communication was effective. Next is there is no concept of communication failure like noise and barriers. So there is no barriers or there is no hindrance in um, that communication. So it is not that effective. So this next is this model can only be used in public speaking. So in we can just only this Aristotle model of communication in public speaking, just like a meeting de avance, SONA, that is an example also of public speaking. So this model used only in public speaking. Okay, understood? Okay, next is the Lowell's model of communication. So developed by communication theorist Harold B. Laswell in 1948. So Laswell's model of communication, also known as the model or linear model or one-way model of communication, is regarded as the one or the most influential communication models. So let's see how's communication or how's the model of communication Laswell. So as you can see, we have who, which is the sender, says what, the message, channel, the medium, to whom, the receiver, and with what effect, the feedback. So this is how Laswell's model of communication goes. So let's define those components. Who, meaning the communicator or the sender or the source of message. For example, I am the speaker and you're the audience, or you're the receiver of the message. Says what? The content of the message. So the content of my message is the discussion about the models of communication. In which channel? So the media or the medium. So what is the tools that I'm using right now? So I'm using desktop. And through that desktop, I'm using Zoom application. So that is the media or the medium that I'm going to use or I'm using right now. So to whom? The receiver of the message or an audience. So you are the receiver or the audience. So who? For example, the teacher, the content, the discussions, the media, the desktop you are using or the application that the teacher using, to whom? The receiver or the student who are listening to the teacher, and what and with what effect. So the feedback of the receiver to the sender. So in a classroom setting, we can say that the assessment or the quizzes, the activities are the feedback of the students to the teacher. Diba? So I can say that you learn through that assessment. If you pass the quiz, if you pass the activity, of course, meaning the communication process is effective because you learn from me. Okay, so this Laswell communication goes. Okay, so take a look at the criticism about the Laswell's model of communication. So there are few criticism around this model. So some of them are does not include feedback and it ignores the possibility of noise. So just like Aristotle model of communication, there is also no feedback happening. So next one is very linear and does not consider barriers in the communication process. Yeah, so and last, more focused in resulting the outcome and generally used for media persuasion. Okay, so next is the Berlow's models of communication, or so we can um, also known as the SMCR model of communication, the Weber's models of communication. So they describe the factors affecting the individual components in the communication, making the communication more efficient. So in Berlow's communication or models of communication, it focuses on the encoding and decoding, which happens before the sender sends the message and before the receiver receives the message respectively. So before the sender sends, he or she will going to encode. Then before the receiver receives the message, he or she will decode. So in Berlow's model of communication, it has a mainly four components to describe the communication process. There is a sender, message, channel, and receiver. So each of component is affected by many factors. So take a look at this diagram. So it shows the A source encodes a message for a channel to receive or to a receiver who decodes the message or SMCR model. So we have the source, the communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, culture. So before the sender also encodes, then message, the content, the element, treatment, structure, and code. Then next, the channel. So in channel, we're using our five senses, which hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting. Then next, the codes, then the receiver, which the same as the sender, which um, having communication skill, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture. So this is how linear communication goes. So again, in linear communication, we have Aristotle models of communication, Laswell's model of communication, and Verslow model of communication, also known as SMCR model. Okay?